Technology is making the world more accessible for populations with disabilities. From robots to AI-powered communication, these tools are creating more opportunities for disabled individuals. I speak to Ariel Simms of Disability Belongs. The nonprofit works to create systemic change in how society views and values people with disabilities. Ariel, so great to talk to you. I know that you're on a panel talking about AI and how it's actually impacting the daily lives of people with disabilities in a profound fashion. Can you talk to us about some of the things you're seeing?
Absolutely. I think with the world of AI, the thing is it's developing so rapidly, and there are equal parts promising and somewhat terrifying for the disability community at the same time. On the one hand, the promising things is making the world more accessible, understandable, and more intuitive than ever before. But on the flip side of that, we're also seeing increased potential for privacy and autonomy concerns, things that our community is really worried about.
Yeah, balancing that's tough, but when you can see it like impacting your life in a positive fashion, can you talk about things that you've seen that really kind of strike you as like, wow, this is great? Why, maybe putting aside the fear aspect?
Sure, I'll leave fear to the side for a moment, but I think when companies get it right, it tends to have a few different things. So I'll call this like the recipe for success. They think about accessibility from the start. It's not an afterthought. So they design with accessibility in mind. They also hire individuals with disabilities, not just as advisors or kind of ad hoc consultants. They're part of the company. They are part of the company culture. They help innovate throughout.
When companies get it right, that's the key little piece to all of this. Are they getting it right? And I know that you've got the tough slog of actually getting out there and pushing.
Yeah.
Is it getting easier to push, or are you still running up against some of those obstacles? And can you cite some companies that are embracing exactly what you're talking about?
So I would say overall, we're seeing some positive things across the field. We're also seeing some things that are more on the concerning side. So have to admit it's a mixed bag out there, but those are the companies that are getting it right, that are hiring individuals, working directly with the community and keeping humans in the loop with AI development. Those are all really key. And something that we found successful in talking and working with companies is really helping them understand the business case. That when you create products and services that are accessible, they work for most humans, not even just the disability community. They benefit more of humanity. And then if you build products and services that are flexible and can help people meet individual needs, well, now you're really hitting the sweet spot of making something that can work for most people and giving it enough adaptability that it can also tailor and meet those specific needs. And those are really the keys to success.
We talk a lot about the D word, disability, but we didn't talk about the other D word, which is discrimination. It's still a
Huh.
huge issue.
Oh, it is still a huge issue. And we've had anti-discrimination law in the United States since 1973. But that doesn't mean that it's always been enforced and that people don't have the experience of discrimination on the ground.
What are some of the issues people with disabilities face when they would try and use digital platforms, for example? What are some of the things you still see out there?
I mean, how much time do you have? There are so many issues. I will say sometimes it's the basic accessibility consideration. So engaging with a platform and the font size is not readable. It's not a sans serif font. It's a less readable font. Or the level of the language is not easily understood. The information isn't presented well. Or there are other things like it's incompatible with assistive technologies such as screen readers or other mobility devices that make it really difficult for people to even try to use the technology.
Embracing your community, getting them involved early on is key, as you said. But is there a sense that there's tokenism where you still, even, people act like they're buying it, but they're not necessarily taking the big step that they need to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think an all too common story out there is a company that doesn't have representation of disabled people goes to create something that they say is for our community, but they never talked to us. They never asked us if we even wanted the technology or the service in the first place.
Oh, thanks so much.
And then yes, and then they certainly didn't work with us to get it to completion. So, another pitfall that we see is sometimes companies will engage an advisory council, and usually one that's not necessarily paid, and they'll have a group of disabled folks kind of look at something and give them some basic feedback, and then they'll be like, "Okay, great, we checked that box, we got input from the community." And that's really not gonna what's gonna work best for the market, the business, what they're trying to solve. If they can keep our community in at the forefront, if they can hire us, include us in the design process, ultimately you're gonna get a better product, a better service, and a better bottom line.
Like put myself in the shoes of people in your community. What's it like to actually see a product that, as you said, they didn't just check the box, where they actually spent some time, engaged, got that kind of input, where you can actually go and get a product and say, wow, this really, what's that like for people in your community?
It's incredibly exciting when there is a product out there that is well designed, that thought about us from the get go. But more than just that, I've been referring to our community, but when I talk about accessibility, I do mean all humans. There's a concept called universal design, which talks about designing for everyone, for most humans. And if we design better from the start, we're going to create something that's more usable and more popular, and word of mouth is going to grow. So a lot of things, for example, that even were meant for the disability community end up being used by people outside of the community. We even have a name for this. We call it the curb cut effect, and it happens all the time. Texting, for example, was a result of the disability community and deaf individuals trying to communicate. And who doesn't love texting these days?
Who doesn't text,
Yeah.
right? Let me ask a couple more questions. What excites you about this tech field when it comes to your community moving forward? And then I guess the other question is, what's it like to be in your role where you're fighting? It seems all the time. I mean, is it exhausting or?
It's a balance. I think the excitement overwhelms the fight. There's a lot of things that we have to fight for every day. Things like even to outlaw sub-minimum wage for disabled workers, to ensure that new products are built and there are accessibility standards that keep pace with emerging technologies. But I get more excited when I encounter companies and people who have that genuine commitment, who are here to make the world a more accessible and inclusive place and are trying to use technology as a means to drive that. And those are the folks that we love to work with, because we know when we bring together that expertise with that genuine commitment, we are going to get that more accessible world.
I've got one final question for you, and then we'll let you run off and go look at all the fun stuff. I read an article and you were quoted in it, and I never thought of COVID as anything but like this horrible negative experience. But it was really interesting reading this piece about how many people with disabilities suddenly were engaged because they could work from home. They didn't have to go to the office. And the fear of the pandemic ending and being forced back into the office and kind of changing the landscape. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And, something out there that I think a lot of people have dismissed is that the pandemic is still with us. It's not over. It's going to be here with us for a long time. So individuals like myself who are immune compromised, we're still having to navigate the health challenges and the potential health challenges that come with this new virus and this evolving virus every single day. So it hasn't, really gone away. But I think it has opened up an awareness, and I'm hoping that awareness will last, that we don't have to go back to the way things were always done. Like technology, we can innovate and do things differently, including having working from home policies. My entire organization is remote, and we get a lot of work done. There's a lot of work to do, but we get a lot of work done.
Ariel, what a delight. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.